Valve, the gaming giant known for Steam, owes $20 million, but is saying, nope, we are not paying. Some sneaky lawyers flipped Valve's own pro-gamer rules into a money-making scheme that could have cost Valve billions of dollars if they didn't stop it. This comes from just under 15,000 arbitration claims filed by Steam users alleging that Valve used unfair practices to jack up prices. Valve originally paid an initial $1.8 million in filing fees for these claims, but is refusing to pay the additional $20 million for the case management fees. Valve's refusal is seen as a tactic to avoid the costly arbitration process it originally implemented in its Steam subscriber agreement. This has left thousands of claimants in limbo, so their lawyers went all in and filed a motion for sanctions, which would force Valve to pay the fee or the court would give them even more penalties. But it's not as simple as Valve just not wanting to pay out $20 million, because at first, I wondered why don't they just pay it? They make millions of dollars a day just off Counter-Strike case openings alone, so it's not like Valve can't afford the fee. Well, there's actually a very good reason why Valve isn't paying it. It all started in January 2021 with antitrust lawsuits against Valve. There was Colvin versus Valve Corp, which was for consumers, and then there was Wolfire Games versus Valve Corp for developers. They claimed Valve's 30% fee on Steam games hurt developers and then inflated prices for consumers. In October 2021, a judge ordered consumers to go after individual arbitration rather than a class action lawsuit. By 2023, mass arbitration started, with law firms like Mason LLP and Zager LLC filing thousands of arbitration claims with the American Arbitration Association. By December 2023, Mason alone filed 14,911 cases, with over 70,000 more getting ready, which costed them around $1.5 million in filing fees. So Valve handed over $1.86 million to cover their fees. The reason Valve covered their fees was that in the Steam subscriber agreement, Valve said they would pay the arbitration legal fees and costs for both itself and the claimant. This was designed to make arbitration accessible to consumers. But of course, with Valve offering help, there will be people who take advantage, which is exactly what this group of lawyers and law firms did. Multiple different law firms around 2022 and 2023 started running massive ad campaigns on YouTube, Facebook, and Reddit, along with hosting their own sites, essentially telling people that they were quote-unquote getting scammed by Steam, and they could sign up with them to eventually earn some money, claiming it would be around 60% of the total amount you spent on Steam since 2017. Now you might be thinking, oh, these lawyers were actually for Steam users and trying to get their money back. But it actually couldn't be more wrong, because Valve's Steam subscriber agreement originally was heavily pro-consumer. Literally, if you had a problem with Steam and Valve, they would pay for your legal fees for arbitration. Arbitration is a legal process outside of court where a neutral third party, called an arbitrator, makes a decision. So these lawyers try to take advantage of Steam's rules to get as many people signed up to go after Valve as possible. Most of these Steam users had no idea what they were even signing up for, with tons of Steam users even regretting it afterwards, trying to figure out how to back out. That is because people started to realize that these lawyers weren't working in the best interest of Steam users, they were working for themselves. Once Valve started to get hit with tens of thousands of these claims, they looked into the situation a little more, and by September 2024, Valve removed the arbitration clause from the SSA, simply because it was being heavily exploited by these lawyers. The goal of the lawyers was to get a bunch of arbitration claims, overload Valve, and then make them pay the fees, and then they would pocket all the money. This isn't just an unverified claim, because what these lawyers didn't expect is that Valve would get their hands on a confidential slideshow via an ex-lawyer at one of the firms. This slideshow lays down the lawyers' game plans, explaining their mass arbitration strategy, and how they actually just see it as an investment, as the legal process and making advertisements to find claimants would cost less than what they make back. They broke down how they would do it with different costs, finding specific companies to target, and even explained the potential returns for doing these operations. But where things get interesting in this slideshow is that they had Valve listed as an example to hit for mass arbitration. This is like a bank robber making a how to rob a bank book, and inside they use their local bank as an example. but then they get caught robbing that same bank. This led to Valve filing lawsuits against the lawyers for trying to extort them with, at the time, over 50,000 Steam user claims, which was expected to cost over $500 million if their claims actually went through, and the total amount was expected to be in the billions, as between the law firms there was around 180,000 Steam user claims in the works. This means that there were around 180,000 to 200,000 Steam users genuinely tricked by these law firms. These users thought the lawyers were on their side fighting for them, but in reality the lawyers' only goal was to force Valve to pay out, and then they take a huge cut of the money. They don't care about the Steam users, and they don't care about the 30% fee, as their own is unironically even higher. So in March 2025, AAA invoiced Valve for $20 million for these case management fees for over 14,000 of the filings. This is less than 10% of the total amount of claims that these lawyers were working on. So if Valve didn't get this situation sorted soon, they were going to have to pay out a lot more. It has been noted by multiple court documents that Valve is just straight up refusing to pay, as if they really wanted to, there's no denying Valve would have the funds. So after a few months of waiting, as the bill was due in March, the law firms involved decided last week to file for a motion for sanctions to make Valve pay the fee and then reward the lawyers with even more money. Now, at the moment, it is still up to the court to decide whether Valve will be forced to pay the fees or not. It does seem a bit likely that the court will make Valve pay the $20 million, just due to the fact Valve originally stated they would pay the fees in the Steam subscriber agreement until they took it out. But there is ultimately the chance the judge sides with Steam, as these lawyers were clearly working in bad faith. Valve didn't do this because they are anti-consumer like the lawyers claim. It's actually the exact opposite. Valve had this rule in their agreement because they were for consumers, but lawyers took advantage of it, and Valve was forced to remove it before they had to pay billions of dollars. So even though $20 million is nothing to Valve, this is why they are refusing to pay it, and in the coming weeks you might see a court force Valve to pay the $20 million fee. Or could we see the court rule in their favor? What do you think? Should Valve pay it or not?